Welcome to the theatre of the absurd. We live in a world where monumental achievements like the moon landing, the advent of the internet, and the decoding of the human genome coexist with the absurdities of modern politics and society. Picture a society that has pushed the boundaries of human knowledge and innovation, only to be led by political figures that seem more suited for a satirical sitcom than a global superpower. We live in a world that at times feels more like a dark comedy than a rational, functioning society. In 2016, the United States, a country known for its prowess in science, technology, and military power, presented the world with a spectacle that seemed almost laughable: a presidential election between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. A reality TV star versus a career politician embroiled in controversy. Fast forward to 2020, and the situation appeared even more surreal. Trump versus Joe Biden, an aging politician known for his gaffes and apparent cognitive decline. It was as if the country had gone through the depths of its political bench and decided, these are our best choices. Is this really the best humanity has to offer, or is something deeper at play? In a world where the ultra-wealthy and powerful seem to pull the strings, how did we end up here? Being told that these are the leaders we should rally behind. These are the people fit to guide the world's most influential democracy. The reality is that modern politics, mass media, and social control have become tools to manipulate the masses, shaping public perception and opinion while maintaining the illusion of choice and progress. We are distracted by the absurd, kept preoccupied by theatrical spectacles, and fed a constant diet of conflicting narratives to keep us divided and powerless. This is the story of how the world is tricked, not through overt oppression, but through the subtle, sophisticated manipulation of reality. It's a story of how mass media and powerful entities have created a system where the real issues are buried under layers of superficial conflict, and how, despite all our advancements, we find ourselves living in a society where absurdity reigns supreme. Political theatre, the illusion of choice. In any democratic society, elections are supposed to be the cornerstone of freedom, a process that allows the people to choose leaders who will represent their best interests. But what happens when that choice is no longer real? When the candidates presented to the public are carefully selected not for their competence, but for their ability to maintain a facade of competition while upholding the interests of those behind the scenes. The US presidential elections of 2016 and 2020 serve as a perfect example. On the surface, it seemed like a battle of ideologies. Trump's brash populist rhetoric against Clinton's establishment liberalism in 2016, followed by Trump's aggressive conservatism versus Biden's moderate Democrat persona in 2020. But a closer look reveals a different picture, one where both sides are more similar than different in terms of their ties to powerful financial and corporate interests. Consider this. Both parties receive substantial funding from the same powerful corporations, hedge funds, and private entities. Policies that could truly shift power away from the elite, such as meaningful campaign finance reform, restructuring of the tax code, or breaking up monopolistic corporations, are conspicuously absent from the platforms of both major parties. Instead, the elections are reduced to a spectacle of personality clashes, empty promises, and fear-mongering rhetoric. This political theatre serves a purpose. It gives the public the illusion of choice while ensuring that the status quo remains intact. The average voter is led to believe that they are participating in a democratic process, when in reality, they are simply choosing between two different faces of the same agenda. Meanwhile, the issues that truly impact the long-term health of the nation, economic inequality, the erosion of civil liberties, and the unchecked power of the ultra-rich, remain unaddressed. The absurdity of the candidates themselves becomes part of the distraction. By focusing on gaffes, scandals, and superficial controversies, the media ensures that the public remains fixated on personalities rather than policies. This is not incompetence, it is deliberate. By keeping the public's attention on the absurd, the powerful are free to continue their agenda behind the scenes. This spectacle is not limited to the United States. Across the world, political systems are increasingly falling into this same pattern. Charismatic populists and out-of-touch technocrats duking it out in elections that seem more like scripted reality shows than genuine democratic processes. In each case, the people are given the illusion of choice, while the true decision-making power remains firmly in the hands of a few elites. The mass media machine, engineering reality. If political theatre is the stage, then mass media is the lighting and sound, the tool that shapes how we see and hear everything. The media has long been considered the fourth estate, an institution that acts as a check on power. But what happens when the media itself becomes a tool of power, used not to inform, but to manipulate? Today, most major media outlets are owned by a handful of massive conglomerates. In the US, for example, just 5 corporations, Comcast, Disney, AT&T, Viacom CBS, and Fox, control around 90% of the media market. This consolidation has created a situation where the narrative can be controlled from the top, with editors and producers setting the tone for what issues are discussed, how they are framed, and just as importantly, what is left out. But the reach of these conglomerates goes far beyond traditional media. They also control large swathes of the social media landscape through their subsidiaries and partnerships with tech giants like Facebook, Google, and Twitter. What we see, read, and discuss online is shaped by algorithms designed not to reflect reality, but to keep us engaged and enraged. The more divisive and emotionally charged the content, the more clicks and ad revenue it generates. This drives the media to emphasize conflict, fear, and sensationalism, while downplaying context and nuance. The result is a society where people are not just misinformed, but actively manipulated to feel and behave in certain ways. Consider how different news networks report on the same event. The same protest can be portrayed as a peaceful march for justice or a violent mob of anarchists, depending on the network's agenda. Facts are selectively presented, quotes are taken out of context, and events are framed in a way that fits the desired narrative. This manipulation creates a polarized public, divided along ideological lines, each side convinced that they are right and the other is the enemy. The ultimate irony is that people turn to these media outlets for guidance, believing that they are being informed when in reality they are being programmed. The media's role has shifted from a source of information to a tool of social engineering, shaping not just what people think, but how they think. This power becomes even more insidious when you realize that many of these media conglomerates have direct ties to the same financial entities that fund political campaigns and own major industries. A corporation like BlackRock, which holds significant shares in media, technology, real estate, and other sectors, has a vested interest in controlling the public narrative. By shaping what we see, hear, and discuss, they can steer public opinion in a way that supports their own financial and political interests. Divide and conquer. One of the oldest strategies for maintaining power is the principle of divide and conquer. If you can keep people fighting among themselves, they will be too distracted to recognize the true source of their problems. This strategy has been perfected in modern society through the use of identity politics and cultural fragmentation. Rather than addressing systemic issues like economic inequality or the erosion of civil liberties, the media and political class focus on identity-based conflicts, race, gender, sexual orientation, and other personal characteristics. These issues, while important in their own right, are used as tools to polarize and fragment society. People are encouraged to see themselves not as part of a shared national or global community, but as members of competing tribes. Each tribe is convinced that it is under attack and that the other side is the enemy. This fragmentation is not accidental. It serves the interests of those in power by ensuring that the public remains divided and unable to unite around shared goals. Consider how quickly a national debate on economic policy can be derailed by a controversy over language, symbols, or celebrity statements. These manufactured controversies dominate the news cycle, generating outrage and diverting attention from more pressing issues. The result is a society that is deeply polarized, where people are more loyal to their ideological tribe than to the common good. This polarization is not just a political phenomenon, it extends into every aspect of life. People choose where to live, who to befriend, and even what products to buy based on their ideological alignment. The sense of shared identity and mutual understanding that once held societies together has been replaced by suspicion and hostility. This division is not merely a side effect of modern politics, it is the goal. By keeping people focused on petty cultural battles, the powerful are free to pursue their own agendas without interference. The more divided the people, the easier they are to control. The illusion of wealth. In a society where the flow of money is controlled by a small elite, the concept of wealth becomes another tool of manipulation. Most people equate wealth with income, believing that the more money they earn, the wealthier they become. But true wealth is not about how much you make, it's about how much you keep and what you own. In today's world, most people are trapped in a cycle of debt and consumption. They work long hours to earn money, which they then spend on goods and services that depreciate in value. To keep up with the rising cost of living, they take on debt, credit cards, mortgages, auto loans. This debt binds them to a lifestyle where they are constantly chasing after a standard of living that is just out of reach. But this cycle is not accidental, it is engineered. Central banks and financial institutions create a system where debt is the primary means of accessing what used to be considered basic necessities: housing, education, healthcare. By keeping the population indebted, the powerful ensure that people remain dependent on the system and unable to challenge it. At the same time, the concept of wealth is distorted. People are encouraged to define success not by their financial independence, but by their consumption habits. The more you own, the more successful you appear. But in reality, most of what people own is financed through debt, leaving them vulnerable to economic shifts and market downturns. The true wealth is held by those who control the flow of capital, the banks, hedge funds, and investment firms that dictate how money moves through the economy. These entities do not rely on income, they rely on assets that generate passive income: stocks, bonds, real estate. While the average person works for their money, the wealthy make their money work for them. The corporate agenda. One of the most alarming trends in modern society is the consolidation of corporate power. Across industries, a handful of megacorporations are acquiring ever greater control over the global economy. Companies like BlackRock and Vanguard own significant shares in almost every major corporation, from tech giants like Google and Amazon to media companies like Disney and CNN. This concentration of ownership gives these entities unprecedented influence over the economy, culture, and even politics. Consider the case of Monsanto, now owned by Bayer. For decades, Monsanto has been at the forefront of genetically modified organisms, GMOs, and patented seeds. Their goal is not just to create more efficient crops, but to control the food supply by monopolizing the genetics of staple crops. By making seeds that do not naturally reproduce, they force farmers to buy new seeds every season, trapping them in a cycle of dependence. Bill Gates, once known solely as a tech mogul, has turned his attention to agriculture. He is now one of the largest private owners of farmland in the United States. His investments in synthetic meat and genetically engineered crops suggest a vision of the future where the food supply is dominated by a handful of corporations. Control the food and you control the people. This corporate consolidation extends beyond food. Companies like Amazon and Google are integrating into every aspect of life, from shopping and entertainment to healthcare and cloud computing. With each acquisition, they gain more data, more control, and more power. The vision is clear: a future where a handful of entities control the flow of information, goods, and services, creating a system where the average person has little autonomy and even less power. Understanding the game. The key to breaking free from this web of manipulation is to understand the game being played. Recognize that the absurdity you see in politics, media, and society is not a sign of incompetence, but a deliberate strategy. The goal is not to inform, empower, or uplift, but to distract, divide, and control. By stepping back and viewing these systems from a broader perspective, you begin to see the patterns, the polarization, the manufactured controversies, the cycle of debt, and the concentration of corporate power are all interconnected. They are not isolated phenomena, but part of a cohesive strategy to maintain control over a population that might otherwise demand change. The solution lies in critical thinking, financial literacy, and community building. Educate yourself about how the monetary system works, understand the true nature of wealth, and build networks of like-minded individuals who are aware of the manipulation at play. The more people who wake up to the reality of these systems, the harder it becomes for the powerful to maintain their grip. Real change will not come from choosing the right political candidate or consuming the right media. It will come from a collective awakening, one that rejects the spectacle and focuses on building systems of empowerment and self-sufficiency. Understanding the illusion. The world we live in is a complex web of manipulation, where political theatre, media control, and corporate dominance create an environment that keeps the average person distracted, divided, and dependent. But understanding this illusion is the first step to taking back control. When you see the absurdity for what it is, a strategy rather than a mistake, you begin to reclaim your power. The truth is that the systems of control are fragile. They rely on people's ignorance and compliance. The more you educate yourself, the more you see through the spectacle, and the more you can start making decisions that align with your true interests, rather than the interests of those at the top. In the end, the real question is not how they trick the world, but how much longer we are willing to be tricked. The power to break free is within reach, but it starts with a decision: to see the absurdity for what it is, and to refuse to be a pawn in someone else's game. Thank you for spending time with us through Spookscope today. Feel free to share your knowledge and wisdom in the comments section, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends and family. Until next time, my dear spooker, stay curious.